If the radical left and feckless rhinos thought they could intimidate the Trump administration into backing off from their crackdown on Minneapolis, they were in for one rude awakening. In fact, what Trump just did changes everything, all while a new poll just dropped that's absolutely devastating for the woke left. Stick me to the very end of this video, because what I'm about to show you proves the American people are speaking loud and clear, and the radical Democrats are not going to like what they hear. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. The lying, dying legacy media concocted their newest hoax this weekend. They are doubling down. They are circling the wagons, trying to convince their rapidly dwindling audience. And by the way, that's not an exaggeration. The Washington Post has just announced they're going through yet another round of massive layoffs. In fact, they may end up folding their entire sports division. It's that bad. They're literally hemorrhaging readers. Even their owner, Jeff Bezos, admitted that nobody trusts the legacy media anymore. But alas, today, they're giving us yet another reason to dismiss them. They are desperately trying to convince their rapidly dwindling audience that the American people have turned on ICE and federal immigration enforcement, that the ICE raids in Minneapolis are backfiring. And now even Republicans are calling on the Trump administration to back off on their mass deportation efforts. This, of course, after the shooting of Alex Preddy, the 37-year-old ICU nurse who got into a tussle with federal agents and ended up pulling out his concealed handgun and got himself shot. The American people are outraged over this, we are told, just like they were with the killing of Renee Good. Clearly, no one voted for this. The American people don't want this. And so Trump has got to back down and let Minneapolis continue to degenerate into the American Mogadishu. Senate Democrats are now even threatening another government shutdown over all of this, refusing to fund ICE agents terrorizing American citizens. And Minneapolis residents are rising up like never before, demanding ICE agents leave their city, yada, yada, yada. That's the narrative that the lying, dying legacy media is going with. And it would be great if it weren't for the fact that, once again, it is patently untrue. Sure, feckless rhinos can always be counted on to buckle under pressure and turn on Trump. That's not news. That's what rhinos do. That's just Lisa Murkowski fulfilling her job description. No, this entire narrative is completely contradicted by the latest polls that just dropped that show that the majority of the American people are most definitely supportive of Trump and these deportation efforts. A new poll from the PUP Research, that's Plymouth Union Public Research, shows that 74% of Americans believe fighting illegal immigration is important. 44% believe it is very important. Just 7% believe it's not important at all. And those are the ones that you see rioting in Minneapolis. They represent 7% of the population, according to this PUP poll. And to make it even worse, a plurality support and approve of ICE and Border Patrol, despite 24/7 round-the-clock negative coverage by the legacy media. The latest YouGov poll gives ICE agents a 45% favorable rating as compared to a 42% unfavorable rating made up entirely of Kamala Harris voters. Many commentators are noting that a +3 approval, the single most controversial federal law enforcement agency, is pretty darn good. But here's the big one. This is the one that's absolutely devastating for these far left insurrectionists. 57% of Americans believe ICE agents should be able to do their job without being impeded or harassed. 6 in 10 reject what these lunatic leftist agitators are doing. 58% believe ICE agents put their lives on the line to keep the public safe. 57% believe ICE agents have the dangerous job of keeping us safe from violent criminals, and 51% approve of using ICE agents to combat illegal immigration. The study found that organized efforts to obstruct enforcement, quote, draw limited sympathy and appear confined to a very small but vocal slice of the electorate. So this poll shows even stronger support for ICE than the YouGov poll. But both corroborate that what's happening in Minneapolis, this literal insurrection, is actually repugnant to the vast majority of the country, which simply means that the vast majority of the country sides with common sense. That's what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth pointed out when he posted this meme. You're going to love this. How to avoid ICE. Step 1, don't be here illegally. Step 2, don't attack ICE officers. And step 3, obey federal and state laws. It's brilliant, straightforward, and it triggered every single leftist in America because it pointed out the obvious. It is very, 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 very hard for a U.S. citizen to get killed by an ICE agent. It's actually easier to get attacked by a shark than for an American citizen to get killed by an ICE agent. You have to work really, really, really hard. You have to be exceptionally talented at putting yourself directly in harm's way for that to happen, for you to get killed by Federal Border Patrol. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem didn't pull any punches either. She came out and called Alex Pretty's actions, quote, domestic terrorism. She said, and I quote, when you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. He was carrying a loaded 9mm with 2 magazines. He was engaged in illegally obstructing federal law enforcement, and you cannot have a concealed weapon when committing a crime, let alone pull it out while committing the crime. And Trump knows that. President Trump knows that, and what he just did as of today changes everything. Wait till you see this. For decades, our dietary guidelines told Americans the same tired old story. Low fat, low salt, eat less. Meanwhile, our food supply quietly filled up with seed oils, chemical additives, emulsifiers, and ultra-processed junk engineered to hijack your biology. Well, RFK Jr. released new dietary guidelines, and for the first time, the federal government is finally admitting the truth. Ultra-processed food is the real driver of chronic disease. These new guidelines mark a sharp turn toward food quality. They pull America back toward real traditional foods while warning against the processed products because the damage that matters most actually starts in your gut. Your gut microbiome becomes imbalanced, inflammation takes hold, blood sugar control weakens, hormones drift off course, and the gut barrier slowly breaks down. For the first time, dietary guidelines are no longer ignoring the gut. They're explicitly recognizing kimchi as foundational to restoring the microbiome, supporting metabolic control, and strengthening immune function. Kimchi isn't just a fad, it's a centuries-old fermented food loaded with unique probiotic strains that strengthen the gut lining, regulate inflammation, and help the body detox from modern exposures. And RFK isn't just talking about this, he's living it.
Mainly meat and then fermented vegetable, anything fermented. So a lot of kimchi and all kinds of fermented vegetables. And it's really, I would say it's dramatically changed my, everything.
He eats like someone who understands that your gut controls your entire system, from weight regulation to immunity to brain function. The problem is that most people don't eat kimchi every single day. That's why Brightcore created Kimchi One. Kimchi One delivers the powerful benefits of kimchi in a single, simple daily capsule, helping restore what modern food destroys. It supports your gut barrier, helps flush toxins, calms inflammation, and even reduces risk of obesity. In a world built on fake food, give your gut real protection. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking on the link below for 25% off your entire order, or for the best deal available, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off plus free shipping. Call them now at 888-597-0233. I take this every day. I love it. I know you will too. Again, 888-597-0233. So guess who Trump is sending to Minneapolis? It is none other than the skull crusher himself, border czar Tom Homan. Far from backing off or scaling back after the shooting this weekend, Trump is doubling down on immigration enforcement in Minneapolis by sending in his border czar and former ICE chief to Minnesota. Trump announced just hours ago that Homan will be traveling to Minneapolis as of today and report directly to him, describing him as tough but fair and tasking him with managing ICE operations on the ground to continue arresting what the administration calls the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. But also at the same time, Homan's mission includes coordinating investigations into what Trump and the White House are describing as a massive $20 billion plus welfare fraud in Minnesota, which Trump claims, of course, is at least partially responsible for fueling the organized protests. They're obviously interconnected in all kinds of ways. At the very least, the more fraud we're discovering and uncovering, the more unhinged, the more what you want to call frenetic Tim Walz becomes. I mean, his rhetoric gets crazier and more extreme as he tries to whip up these radical leftists into a frenzy so as to distract his own Minnesota constituents from all the fraud he's obviously been involved in, with their money, of course. So the White House says that Homan will oversee both ICE enforcement and these fraud probes, while Trump is simultaneously calling for investigations into the ultra-repulsive Representative Ilhan Omar, alleging that she left Somalia with nothing and is now worth tens of millions of dollars. She literally had nothing back in 2018 when she first won her congressional seat. And now she and her husband are reportedly worth $30 million. How does that happen in such a short period of time? That yield would leave someone like Warren Buffett in the dust. So Trump is looking into that as well. And that's because Trump knows precisely where the American people are in all of this. Americans want deportations. They want border security. And they want crooked and corrupt politicians held accountable. And ironically, even the far left is beginning to notice this. We've talked about this before, this unstoppable doom loop that the Minneapolis far left has been caught up in, where historically movements that face the federal government's escalation ladder, they inevitably splinter. The movement inexorably fractures between those advocating continued escalation and those recognizing the strategic dead end of it all, between those who want to continue to confront versus those who recognize that every confrontation only increases their chances of getting shot. So this is why it's been widely observed that the number of agitators in Minneapolis is actually going down. It's dwindling. It's getting smaller. The killing of Alex Preddy over the weekend did not draw out the millions upon millions of protesters that they were hoping for. This is an insurrection movement that is slowly but surely going the way of all other insurrectionist movements. It's dying out. And again, Trump knows it. So rest assured, Trump is holding the line. He's doubling down. And he's crushing the agitators, all the while deporting their once future voters. Minneapolis is indeed ground zero for mass deportations. And all signs show we are winning.